Recording.
Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah. Yep.
Hi, Kelley.
Hello.
All right. So welcome to episode 4, the Team Vert podcast. We were originally going to recap Lovit 100. So we still are to an extent, but it turns out
nobody ran it.
Nobody ran it. At least nobody from, well, not everyone from here. So that gave us an excuse to do a special episode on, when we talked. I think we talked about this a little bit on the last or the podcast before, or when to, coming to decisions on when to pull the plug on races or drop down in distances. So we're gonna at least have on a few of the ladies that we're gonna go, and I guess just talk through their decisions on, how they came to that, what went into it. If you don't know, we're all going to go to Lovit 100 for some running in the Ouachita Mountains and some pacing and crewing. But for those that aren't aware, the weather was pretty bad in Texas for the days leading up, and a little worse in Arkansas with some snow and ice. And then there's going to be an already tough course, and there's going to be some really cold rain overnight. So that played, I think, the travel mostly played into decision. So I don't want to steal away any of the topics, but I guess I'll let Jen start, since she was going to do, well, she was originally going to do the 100 miler and then drop to the 100K, and then I'll let you guys go. So go for it.
All right. Well, so Lovit is not my A race this season. Bighorn is, and wasn't feeling just entirely confident going in. I know I could grind out 100K, but I could have suffered through 100 miles too. But that gets to the point of, do I just want to run it or do I want to race it? And no, you don't really want to race 100. Well, there's a lot of decisions. Like 100 miler, to train for 100 miler is just pretty stupid. That was just a stupid idea in the beginning. But I don't want to just go out there and suck. So yeah, that played into it. But I think our biggest deal was, like, when we made our decision on Thursday, we were going to leave early Friday morning, and it was still pretty bad here. We knew Arkansas was going to get another round. Kelley was worried about making it to her race on time because she was running the 100 mile that started like at 5:30 or 6 or something. I was more concerned about ice and slick spots on the trail. And, we talked about it in our group. Can we do it? Yes. I didn't want to be 10, 12 hours in and worrying about having to worry about slipping on ice, because, I know how tired I get at that point in the race. And I didn't want to take the risk of, some sort of injury and then derailing Bighorn, because Bighorn is the Hard Rock qualifier and Lovit isn't. So that was kind of my take on it, and a little bit of Kelley's. Kelley's on here. She can talk about some of her concerns as well.
Yeah, I agree with Jen. Like, as the weather, like, we watched the weather, of course, for weeks. You do before every race. And, at one point it was going to be in the 60s at Lovit, which would have been awesome for me, not maybe for other people, but I was excited. Having run part of the Lovit course before, and as the weather got worse and worse and worse, I knew all those water crossings definitely were not going to be fun. But I think our ultimate decision came down to really the trip there, because it wasn't just us getting there. We had crews and pacers going.
Yeah.
And we know our crews and pacers pretty well to know none of them were going to back out. Even if they didn't feel completely safe go, I know they would have still gone.
Yeah.
And so when we were going back and forth on our talk, what was kind of funny, actually, we had 2 text strings going, one with the runners and then one with everyone. And so Thursday morning, we watched an update on the weather, And I think we all went into that update thinking there was a slight chance the race may have been canceled. And when that didn't happen, it was like we're on, then we were thinking, what are we going to do now? So we all wanted to kind of make a unanimous decision. It was either we're all going or we all weren't going. And as we're talking through it, and we knew we were all about to say we're going to defer, our crew's on another text string going, "Oh, bring your headlamp. Make sure you have all these batteries. Where's the directions to all the aid stations?" And we're like, why are they more excited right now than we are? Because so when we made the decision, we finally just talked about all the pros and cons and just getting there. And like Jen said, I was scared about not even getting there on time, and I pretty much knew I was going to have to drop down to the 100K because I knew I was going to be pushing to get there on time at 5 o'clock on Friday. So when we all decided we're just going to vote, defer or go, we all voted the same, and it was like, okay, who's going to tell the crew? Because we know they're ready to go. And who's going to tell Greg?
I did tell Greg, but you told Greg too.
Yeah, we're like, okay, we can do this. But I mean, I think you question your decision. Like, I think the minute we made it, you start questioning whether you made the right decision, and then you see people, finish the race and get there. But I think at the time, with all the information we had, we made the right decision for us. And, like Greg said when I talked to him, at the end of the day, it really is just a race. I know it's not, you train a long time. It takes a lot of your time away from your family, from other things. You make a lot of sacrifices for that. But there are other races. We all really want to do Lovit, but there are other races. You want to race another day. So.
Well, and I think it was Pam that said, I trained so hard or something. And I was like, well, just because you trained hard, just because you're not racing doesn't mean your training is just going to evaporate. Like, you've done a lot of work that's going to carry you forward. You've improved. You take that and just keep building on it. And so, and I always, when I go into a race, it's always this David Roche quote of, races are a celebration, not a test. Even though what I said like 5 minutes ago is completely opposite of that. But like, I just said, Pam, you may not get the celebration this time, but you'll get a celebration soon. And so I think she may have already found another 100K to do.
I think we all immediately kind of signed up for another race. But I think what you just said is a good point, though, about how it's a celebration, not a test. I think we're ready to run 100 miles or 100K, whatever you were signing up for. But then you add in freezing rain in the middle of the night, all these water crossings. I think we lose track sometimes. We want to prove maybe how big of a badass we are, not just by the running, but the race conditions. I don't think it should always be that way. We're really trained to run, not to prove how tough we are in the elements all the time.
Yeah, that too, because I think that's the hard thing about telling somebody that you decided not to go. It's because, and like, actually someone asked me how the race went today, and I was like, I didn't go. And I was like, I'm a loser. And I kind of explained, and they responded, you don't owe anybody an explanation. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to explain this to anybody. It was just the decision that we made at the time. And I really don't feel the need to try to prove that I'm a badass. Like, I know what I can do. And I know that I've run in pretty horrible conditions, and I can do it again. It just like, and if it was my A race, I would not have backed down. I would have just gone on out there and trudged through. But it just, I don't know. I just had a bad feeling. And so I usually trust my gut when I have a bad feeling. Because when I don't trust my gut, I usually end up regretting it later.
Right. And I think some people may question, why do we all decide to do the same thing when you should kind of do your own thing or run your own race? But I think there's a lot I know for me personally, it's not, it's training and going to run a race that you really want to run. But when your team is going, that just adds so much more to it and just makes it so much more special. And I don't know, that's what I get out of it, is just being around all the people that I like to hang out with.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that, you know, the scenario this past weekend with the weather definitely justifies decisions that were made, right? And in addition to that, like Team Dirt and Vert, Team Ninja, these aren't the types of runners that are just going to keep signing up. I mean, we do sign up for races because of FOMO, but we're not going to sign up for them to the extent that we know we're going in underprepared and just not showing up or deferring or whatever. But I won't lie. I mean, I was bummed. And I think because I have that badassery complex, right? I wanted to see like everybody get to their goal, totally knowing, right? Like for the 100-miler race, I mean, that would logistically be a nightmare to try and get there on time, right? So Kelley, to your point, but you know, I'm a support in this effort. And so I'm going to support, you know, the decisions that you all make, because this is your safety, right? I mean, I'm just there for a little fraction of it. And I know that I've got the easy part. So definitely support it. I'm not going to say I didn't text Greg and I was like, oh man, like how do we change their mind? but you know, and I respect you guys for as a group having the sidebar to say, you know, this isn't just our crew, these are our friends and we're looking out for them too. And I think, you know, at least in my short racing experiences, shorter than a lot of others in this group, but you know, I think that that's one of the things that comes up the most, right? Is just thinking about safety. You know, folks that are, you know, maybe not this race, but have an injury, and Jen, to your point, it's not their goal race, right? Like, you know, when do you decide it's not smart while still having respect for, you know, the fact that a race director is putting their heart and soul into it? I just think that it was kind of like a perfect storm, it seemed like, this weekend.
You know, I've told people during 100s or leading up to it, that, you know, this is their time to be selfish. You know, everyone, you when you're running and you're just in the thick of it, unfortunately you just can't think of like, oh, I wonder what my crew's doing. I wonder if they're really cold in that tent without a heater, or, you know, they're standing around wet. I think there was probably Bighorn where I was supposed to meet Fiona at the 50-mile turnaround and with the kids, and I know they had to drive like 2-3 hours just to get to it. And I was like, oh man, it's raining, and they're not. And and I do recall that you weren't allowed to get into the tent unless your runner was coming. So I was like, oh, they're gonna be standing outside the tent in the rain, waiting, and I'm probably like 30 minutes behind schedule. So you're always, you know, especially depending on who's in your crew, you know, but most of the time it's our friends and it's our family and people are close. So you're always thinking them, but you still, you know, in the middle of a race, you have to turn that off. Now going into the race where you can make that decisions of, you know that your crew's going to go no matter what. Cause I'd already laid my clothes out. I had all the different layers packed and I was ready to go. But I guess before the race, you can, you know, I guess you're not as selfish. You have to think about the people that we're driving 4 hours on a good day around, you know, some sketchy, windy roads, and then when we know it's going to be icy and we have time constraints, and we were going to leave at after work, so we were going to be driving at night when things will probably freeze over again. So coming from the different perspective before the race, that at that time you can't be selfish. You got to think about other people that are coming to support you. And I totally, while I really wanted to go and experience, because I didn't have to experience all of it, I did watch the start video, and I did get a little FOMO. I was like, man, that looks really awesome, and look at him go. And then Steve sent me a text of after, you know, pacing Ben through, I guess, the last 29 miles, and I think Ben finished just under 30 hours, but he told me how bad and cold and how rainy it was. And then I totally got rid of my FOMO. I was like, you know what? I am totally happy with not going. I love pacing and crewing and supporting, but that's also several hours of pain and suffering that we got out of. So I can totally see the other.
I'm gonna watch the videos.
Yeah,
I can't watch them. I saw those videos pop up and I was like, I can't do it.
I wanted to see Caro again.
I can't. But it kind of made me sad. So I just have kind of blocked that out of my mind.
I have to say, when I saw the picture, when I saw the picture of Ben coming in with like a vest with his dollar parka, hanging out, all the layers, I was like, oh no, no, I am nice and warm right now.
I think Ben actually had pants on too for night, which he never.
Yeah, it was crazy. I think it makes you really realize how much I'd never want to be a race director and have to make that decision.
That's for sure.
That race directors had to make like 3 different. They've had 2 really rainy years where rain like shut. They had to drive people across the river because they couldn't safely cross. And so there's been 3 really bad years, including this one, and one year when it was canceled because the Forest Service wouldn't allow runners on there. So, it's a tough year. Tough time of year. Sorry, go ahead, Stacey.
I was just saying, it gives, we're all here to live another day, right? We're all competitive with ourselves. We know that we want to stay motivated. So, now we get to look ahead, right? What are the next races that we're all texting each other about and spending way too much money and saying, oh my God, I'm doing this so close to the next one. But, I think that's a silver lining in a lot of it is, every race, we all learn something different, whether that be, the planning stages or, not getting enough sleep because we're watching the weather nonstop, but we all learn something from it. And, one thing I love about our group, our community is like, I can learn from all of you who are going through some of these experiences, right? And kind of take note of that for me and others who, are just kind of getting to some of these races in bad weather, hibernate and all that kind of fun. So, I always think that's the way, best way to look at it. Okay, we didn't do it. This is why. We have a rationale. We're comfortable with that. Now here's what we do moving forward.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So what are the next backup plans, Kelley? So you can.
I think that all of us that, other than Jen, we have all signed up for the 50 miler at Flower Moon up in Oklahoma, with the Outlaw group.
Yep.
Wait a minute. So, when is that?
May 14th.
What? Which one? Is that the same weekend as Jimenez?
Yeah, it's the weekend before Jimenez, I believe.
Oh, I might be able to do that.
See how easy that is?
Yeah, because several of us are also going to Colorado to do Never Summer in July, so we wanted to have a good race.
Pam's on the wait list. Who's in for sure?
I'm in for sure.
You're in for sure. Stacey.
I'm on the wait list.
Wait list. Jay Glow's on the wait list.
Yeah, I may decide though, because I think the 60K still has openings. So it's like I went on the list for the long one in case I puss out and can then go down. But we'll see. I've got to keep the family happy too, since we've got the kids that would be in tow.
Yeah.
And I think Jay Glow is considering the 60K.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's not a bad backup plan. Now does
I'm thinking about Watch Top 50, but it seems like it might be a little flat. So I'm gonna see.
Here you go. Stacey knows the course.
Yeah.
Give it the rundown,
if you only
Stacey.
have that one climb.
Just the one climb, right?
Yeah, it's really not that bad. I just did the 50K, right? And so I had been hurt and injured. So the furthest I think I had gone before that race was like 12 miles, like 3 months before or something. Like the last couple climbs on pavement towards the finish were a little brutal. But yeah, it's just, and the first climb, you can't even really call it a climb, right? You're literally like I don't even know the right term because I'm not a rock climber, but you're literally like
scrambling.
Yeah. So, and that's fun. I think the scary part was when you're going down because it's like slick rock and you all feel like complete like goofballs, right? Like everyone's like back hugging the rocks. But other than that, the course isn't tough by any means.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna do that one. I did some research and it looks like Coyote has more elevation than Watch Top 50. So, but yeah, I'll have to look at that Flower Moon. If I can make that work, I might do that instead. That might work out pretty well with my schedule with Bighorn. I
think around the same. I think the year I did Bighorn, I did Possum's Revenge at the same. I think they're nearly the same weekend, so that kind of made for a good last run before Bighorn.
Yeah. Okay. I like that too.
So, and it'll probably be hot because it'll really be hot in that area of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So it will probably work very well for Bighorn. Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's. I guess we can quickly recap Lovit 100 for the people that weren't paying attention. So Carl, Speed Goat Meltzer of Utah won, of course, in 19 hours and 36 minutes, which is a course record set from that he stole from someone from last year that was really fast. But I didn't put the notes on here. I don't know how many wins it is, or is it 20? I think it might be
20,
like
this
22.
is his 20 years. He's
20, yeah.
He's
22.
got 20 consecutive years of winning at least 100 every year.
Wow.
So, and he looked pretty good coming in. He had really high praise about the race. Laura Kearns of Little Rock, so a local. She's super fast. She won in 25 hours and 17 minutes, so she was first female. And we talked about our guy Ben, who is the 29 hours and 32 minutes. He redeemed his DNF from last year, but he also has another finish from the first year, so he's 2 out of 3 on this course. And there was another, John Hutzel of Roanoke, who finished in 32 hours and 42 minutes, and he was one of the other Texans that were there, but I don't know who John is. But that's a pretty good finish, and he's Roanoke. He's not far from us, so it's a pretty good time there.
Yeah.
And one more, Daniel Geary, who got second in the 100K in 10 hours and 34 minutes.
That is fast.
And he got second. So I think based on my brief stalking of him, he looks to be a Spartan OCR athlete. But that's a really impressive time. So some good showings from the Texans.
All right. Well, other races this weekend, Jackalope Jam happened. They had up to 100-hour races. Christine Tokars of Colorado got 265 miles with the overall win.
I think she led almost the whole way too.
That is incredible. Can you imagine coming from Colorado to Houston and running that 3/4 mile out and back that's just flat as a pancake?
She's a glutton for punishment.
She must.
There's no explanation.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. I just texted Jen. I saw a race report on that race, and I'm like, I hate to admit it, like I actually kind of want to go do this.
No, Kelley, no.
I just laughed. I was like, oh Lord.
I was like, why does this make me want to do this?
I have not. I will never drive through the gates of that ranch again. It is. I just no. Just no. All right, and then Matt Smollett got second overall in the 100-hour. Jeff Colgrove got 226 miles. He's from Denison. Hey, he's in my area. He was in 4th. And then Tommy Gulch in our group lives in Kingwood. He got 202 miles as a Cocodona prep, I'm sure. In the 72-hour, Chad Turner got his 132 miles, got 3rd, which is pretty impressive because their weather was pretty crappy too. Like, I think it was pretty miserable the entire time.
Wind and cold the whole time.
And then Matt Petty did the 48 hours, got 57 miles. He's a Dallas Dirt Runner guy also. So pretty impressive. Because I'm pretty sure I would have run around that cone like 2 times and I've been like, out of here.
That's a totally different mindset.
Yeah, I don't know. That has not appealed to me yet.
I can't do timed races.
I'm not going to say I won't, because every time I say that, something happens. I change my mind. But I mean, I'm pretty far into this thing, and timed races have not appealed to me at all.
No, I'm not one for time, but I would like to do a last man standing race one time. just to see.
I know where one is in June. It's close.
Stacey, would you ever do a time race or a last man standing?
I think it would depend like where it was. Like if it was somewhere where I could build a vacation into it and it was somewhere that I was like, oh heck yeah. But like when I race, I don't like to talk to people at all. So I think I made but then I also hit tipping points where like profanities come out of my like Catholic Irish Chicago mouth. So, I mean, I think I'd have to, if I did, I think it would almost have to be somewhere where I didn't know anybody. So if I offended someone, I didn't lose friends.
Who's this potty mouth Texan up here?
Yeah. So, I mean, it would really have to be in a fun location to draw me in, I think.
I can't wait. I am going to sign up for Stacey's next race and I'm going to run behind her and talk the whole time.
Well, that's our loving Andrew Marvin. So we're all together for ABF, and he was like, "I'm gonna run with you and talk to you." And Kelley's cracking up. She's like, "You have never run with Stacey." I mean, I do love company, and I love hearing people talk. I'm just not the best always participating in the conversation.
I don't like to talk a whole lot either.
Yeah.
As a general rule, sometimes I feel a little chatty. Most of the time, no.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird because people will just start chatting it up in the middle of a race. And I'll remember like things that they said. I'll remember like what they were wearing. I can never remember their name.
Oh no, never. Ever. It's like, hey, you, how'd you do?
I'll see them like late in the race and they'll go, Jen. I'm like, hey, like, I don't know. I'm a terrible person.
No.
Anyway.
It's not terrible.
Just ADHD.
All right, let's see. Well, I don't know. We might have hit all our topics here.
Yeah, that was.
It's just going to be a special one for Lovit. So
I have a question though for you guys. Yep. When do you think it's like totally not appropriate to back out of a race that you signed up for, or do you think there's ever a scenario?
I actually do think. I think sometimes if you're going to let fear get the best of you, and not fear of, races can induce a lot of anxiety, right? And I think most of us, because we've invested so much, care a lot about the outcome. And I think especially like when we're first getting into it, we aren't really quite sure what we're capable of. And so that's really scary. And so I think like when you rob yourself of a chance, but there's really no other good reason, but you're just robbing it. But in the end, you've just robbed yourself of a chance. I think that's probably the time that you probably should have just pushed through your anxiety and gone ahead and run.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree with Jen. I think everybody goes through like this brief time right before the race. I mean, the race itself is so mental, but before the race is pretty mental too, because you start questioning everything. Are you ready? Did you do enough? And you start doubting yourself a little bit, and you do have to push through that. I mean, as Lovit approached and I watched that weather happen, I mean, I'm most definitely not a fan of cold, wet weather, especially after running ABF this year. So I knew when that weather was coming in, that doubt was there, and just, oh my goodness, I'm about to spend 30 hours in that weather again. And we got an email on Wednesday or Thursday before the race, and it started off with just the word unfortunately. And I think we all thought, like, we opened it, and I was getting ready for work. I was all ready for work, and I saw that word unfortunately, and before I could even read, I was in complete tears, thinking the race had been canceled. And then you know how much that race means. Like, you're like, okay, like, I really do want to do, like, I'm ready for this race. But it just kind of let me know. But I agree with Jen. You've got to not let yourself give into those doubts right before the race.
Yeah.
I think for me, I guess the best way I could answer that is like Wasatch. When I when I did something stupid and cracked my ribs a couple weeks before the race. But it's Utah. I'm going to Utah. I'm already the flight's booked, and the races. One of the Grand Slam of ultra running races. So I was going either way. I slapped a bunch of icy hot patches on my ribs and back. Not even sure where the pain was, but and didn't do anything for 2 weeks, and convinced myself that there's a lot of time, and I can go forward, and if I have to drop, I'll drop. So I think my risk assessment was, I'd be safe going. I had friends there. But then during the race, and again, people are going to rehear this because I kind of talked about it in the last podcast that we haven't released, but I got to a point around 70 miles when we were changing, and it got really cold, and we were about to make the last big climb. And I was by myself. I had friends on the course, but they were crewing for other runners. They weren't responsible for me. And we were about to go in a section where about 12 miles committed, where I'm leaving an aid station in civilization at a ski resort. I'm about to climb in the mountains, and there's no cell reception. I'm gonna be in the dark until light comes up. And then just the 15 minutes sitting around changing, my rib and back really, and just putting on another layer, it got pretty painful. And that same thing where you're in your head during a race, and all I could think about is, if I get hurt out here, I can't tell anybody, and I'll still have to either go back, hike it back down to the aid station backwards, or I go forward to the next aid station, but it's a remote aid station, and I'm going to have to sit there for several hours, and there's not going to be a timing chip. Fiona is going to be checking, because Brighton was the last aid station check for 12 miles. So then I start worrying about, you start worrying about your family and your kids, your wife back home. And then that risk assessment is different. So it's not much risk going to the race. If I have to drop, I drop in the daytime. But that risk felt different, especially at night, and everything feels different at night. But the amount of risk that I felt that I was taking was tangibly worse, and that's when I made the decision to go back down, and I dropped there, and I sat there for about an hour because I had to wait for Amy Clark's crew to come pick me up. So we're about an hour away. We'll come get you. And then I watched people come in looking way worse than I did and leaving, and they had plenty of time. And that was probably the first time I cried at I cried at the end of my first 100, but I cried during the race. I kind of had to cover my eyes and cover my face because I felt like I was making a bad decision to drop, because some people were limping in, and they still made it, and some of them ended up finishing. But then when they picked me up, I couldn't even sit up in the car. The road was bumpy, and I just grunted every time it bumped. So, I mean, it ended up being the right decision, but at the time, it was something that I regretted, and I never felt that bad about. I've dropped in races, but a lot of times it was just either my decision that I wasn't having fun, but this one was, this was a little bit different, and the reasons why I dropped were different. So I think that plays into, I guess for me, if it's a big race, like if I ever get in a Hard Rock or Western States, I don't care, what kind of God forbid injury I have, we're going either way, and we're all going, pacers and crew. But I guess it's when you're making that assessment on whether to go, if I'm risking the safety of my crew, obviously we're not going to do that. But if it's just, me taking some risk, I'm okay with that. But then late in a race where if I make a wrong decision and, something bad happens out there, then I'm risking not just me, then I'm risking my family. So I guess that's how I would make those choices for that specific kind of situation. Weather's kind of the similar thing, but I guess it's just the amount of risk involved. So.
As far as dropping, like the most recent thing that comes to my mind is Casey Lechtag. And I had watched her post about this pain she'd been having in her leg. And I think she did, what's that race that Meg did? They both ran that same race.
High Lonesome.
But then she ended up doing Rio del Lago too. I think there was something in between there that didn't work out quite like she wanted to. And she ended up running Rio del Lago and like quite literally limped to the finish line. And I remember reading her post, and I mean, I have the utmost respect for her. Like, she's a badass. But I remember reading her post afterwards, and she was just talking about how she was not going to quit and how she was going to finish no matter what. And then she was talking about all the physical symptoms that she had. And I thought right then, oh my gosh, girl, you should have dropped. And then it wasn't, a week or two later, she posted that she had completely torn her hamstring. And so, that's a really long recovery, and not one that's guaranteed that you'll, be back to 100% ever. And so I think even though it's really hard during a race, like you said, Greg, you have to weigh your health in it. I mean, finishing just to finish to me isn't, I don't think that makes you a badass. I think sometimes the badass thing to do is to realize, maybe this isn't one that I'm going to finish. And when you have like legit excuses like that, like she was obviously hurt. But everyone knows their own body. It's just kind of hard to tell somebody that. And we all have to make those own decisions for ourselves. But it was, that made me kind of sad to see that she had damaged her body that much.
Yeah, you had to decide where the risk, where the stakes, and you can't. Feels a little shallow to weigh the stakes of different races. But some races are more important. Some races are more important to you. It doesn't matter how high profile they are, but whether maybe it was a redemption race and you're willing to hurt a little more. But you do have to decide. This will be something that Stacey's gonna learn this year about trying to figure out, is this just discomfort or is this acute pain? Is it something that I have to take a few days off after the race, or am I gonna be set back for weeks or months? And we're after getting enough experience, you kind of know.
Yeah.
But it's also easy to talk yourself in or out of, man, this is really painful. I might be crippled after this, or that's what having experienced crew is helpful.
Yeah.
It's helpful to have on hand, like, suck it up, you can go. But it's things like that.
Yeah, now we just need all the healthcare professionals to get on the same page when they're diagnosing me.
Oh yeah, well that's never going to happen.
Opposites.
I always when I talk to Allie about things, because she plays volleyball year round. She's pretty beat up most of the time, and we've always talked about hurt versus injured. You can be hurt and still continue and still play and still give your best, and it's not going to. It's not going to set you back. Injured is when you have to take a break, or you're going to cause long-term damage. And we thought she broke her foot at the end of the season, and she told me then, she was like, this feels different. And she knew then, because we had one more game that we had forced a tie with that win, and so we were going to have to play another game to get into the playoffs. But she said it feels different. She knew, And, you know, we talked about that too. I said, again, I was like, well, this is how I'm like, you know, because it's different than the pain is different. And then we had another little thing. She keeps falling on her knee because they don't wear their knee pads right because they're stupid. And so she has a bone bruise on the top of her tibia because she falls on it all the time because she won't wear her knee pads on her actual knees. And so we did go to the ortho to get it checked out because our trainer was like, you got to go. And she said, it's going to be okay. I just know. She said, it doesn't feel like that. So like, I mean, you know, it's pretty cool when you can get to that level of, real, you know, knowing your own body enough to know when something's serious and when something isn't. And she was right. He was just like, just wear your knee pads. Quit being stupid.
Anybody have any last topics, questions, anything they want to bring up?
I think that was a good way to wrap it, right? Just don't be stupid.
Yeah, don't be stupid.
I think Tommy Rivs is don't get dead? Don't get dead. I think that's probably
that's a good one.
Wise words. So
wise word.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and end it. Thanks everyone for jumping on. Hopefully everyone got a little background on how to make decisions on races. So thanks again.
All right, bye guys.
Appreciate it.
See ya.